5.4, factor quadratic expressions in the form x squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so this expression right here is known as a simple trinomial, and what this is it's a trinomial written in this form here. Just please note that the coefficient of x squared is 1. That's the most important part about this simple trinomial. So here are 3 more examples. We see that we have x squared plus 8x plus 15. You see we have y squared minus y minus 12, and both of these are coefficient 1. And then like 1w squared minus 7w plus 12. So here are the actual steps to factoring trinomials in this form when a equals 1. So this a value is 1. So what we do is we use decomposition. So when you think of the word decomposition, I think of decompose. I think of like breaking down. I actually think of the garden. Breaking down. Okay? And that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to take the middle term, we're going to break it down into 2 terms that are equivalent, so we're not changing it. It's just going to look a little bit different. So we're going to find 2 numbers that add to b, so that middle number, and multiply to ac. In this case, we can actually just call it c, because a is always going to be 1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to decompose, or we're going to break down that middle term, that b term, with those 2 numbers found in step 1. Then we're going to have 4 terms, and we can factor by grouping. Okay? Just one note, the signs of the second term, so like that b, if the product's positive, then the second terms are going to have the same signs. Okay, when we break this down into 2 different terms. So, of course, if the product's positive, if the 2 terms are positive, then the product's going to be positive. If both terms are negative, then again, the product's going to be positive. So essentially, what happens is the sum of these 2 numbers tell you the signs of the second terms. And if the product's negative, so if you have a positive negative here, so then the product, when you multiply them, it's a negative number. Then the terms in the middle, the b, what the b broke down into, have different signs. Okay, but you'll come to know this. This is more of a pattern, and you don't have to memorize this. Okay, this activity is just to warm us up to actually factor. So let's find 2 numbers with the following properties. So 2 numbers where their product is 27. So immediately what I do is I break down 27. 127, 3, 9. Okay, and the sum is 12. So what we have to look at is each pair of these. Does 1 plus 27 equal 12? No. Does 3 plus 9 equal 12? Yes. So the answer is 3 and 9. 3 times 9 is 27. 3 plus 9 is 12. Okay, now find 2 numbers where their product is 36. I immediately go 136, 2, 18, 3, 12, 4, 9, 6, 6. And the sum has to be 12. I can tell that it's 6 plus 6. So 1 plus 36 is 37. It's not 12. 2 plus 18 is too big. 3 plus 12, too big. It's 14. 9 plus 4 is only 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh, 9 plus 4 is 13. So those all don't work. 6 plus 6 is 12. So it's 6 and 6. Okay, now we're going to get into questions with negative signs. So their product is negative 12. I do the exact same thing. I list the factors of 12. But I keep in the back of my head that this is a negative 12. So I have to put a negative sign on one of these. And the sum is negative 1. So when I subtract these, I'm already thinking subtraction. When I subtract which one has a difference of 1? And we can just start by doing like the So we can start by just doing 12 minus 1, that's 11. It's not 1. 6 minus 2 is 4, that's not 1. 4 minus 3 is 1. So now we're getting somewhere. Now I assess which one do I have to have the negative sign on. Am I going to do 4 minus 3 or 3 minus 4? Well, we can see that it's 3 minus 4. So our two numbers are 3 and negative 4. Okay, now let's just scroll down. All right, product is negative 20. So again, a negative sign, that's okay. Ignore it for now. List the factors of 20. And the sum is 1. So the sum is positive. So we know that this is going to be the big number minus the little number. Right? So 20 minus 1 is 19. That's not 1. 10 minus 2 is 8. 5 minus 4 is 1. The two numbers are 5 and 4. Now we're going to see how this translates into actual factoring. Okay, so now let's factor using decomposition. So we need two numbers that multiply to AC, okay? And we're going to ignore the A component because the A is just going to be 1 for this lesson. So two numbers that multiply to 12. So I put a multiplication symbol and I put a 12. And add to that middle number, which is B. Add to 7. So I come to the side and I list the factors of 12. 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, 4. Which one of these adds to 7? This is 13, 6, 7, 8. So we have 3 and 4. These are our two factors here. So let's break down 7x into 3x plus 4x. That's our decomposition part of this question. So we actually rewrote this equation and we didn't change anything. We just made the 7x look a little bit different. See this? 3x plus 4x? It's still 7x, it just looks a little bit different. So now that there are 4 terms, we can factor by grouping. So let's group the first 2 and the last 2. Okay. We're going to divide out an x, and we're left with x plus 3. And here, 4x and 12, we're going to divide out a 4, positive 4. And we're left with x plus 3. In this case, our common factor is x plus 3. So let's write x plus 3 as our common factor, and we're left with x plus 4. All right, let's do the next one. What two numbers are going to multiply this negative 12 and add to negative 1? Okay, so again, list the factors of 12. And which one of these sets has a difference of 1? Well, 3 and 4, those are one number apart, right? And if I need my negative, if I need these to add up to a negative 1, that tells me that the bigger number is going to have a negative sign. So let's just put a negative there for the 4. So we're going to rewrite this middle term, and we're going to rewrite it as plus 3y minus 4y. Okay, so a little bit similar over here, but a different number that we added up to. And again, 3 minus 4 is just negative 1. So we're not changing this equation. We're just rewriting it to look a little different. Okay, now we just factor by grouping. So we're going to divide both of the first terms by y, and we're left with y plus 3. And the second terms by negative 4. If this negative side is leading, always pull it out. And we're left with y plus 3. The common factor here is y plus 3. And we're left with y plus 3, y minus 4. Okay, next one. So what two numbers multiply to 16 and add to 8? So we multiply there. Okay, let's write out the factors of 16. 116, 2, 8, 4, 4. So 4 plus 4 equals 8. So we're going to make this 8w a little bit different using 4w plus 4w. Now, let's group this. Okay. Out of the first two terms, we can pull out a w. So we're left with w plus 4. And the second two terms, we're going to pull out a 4. So it's going to be plus 4, w plus 4. The common factor here is w plus 4. So we're going to write our common factor. And then we're going to write the leftover, w plus 4. And we can simplify this to w plus 4 squared. Now, to me, as soon as I see this, I'm thinking perfect square trinomial. And if you come up here, we can root 1, we can root 16, which is 4. So 1 times 4 times 2 is that middle number. This is a perfect square trinomial. Okay, last one for this activity. This one's a little bit more complex because we're dealing with two different variables. We have x squared plus 3zy minus 18y squared, but we're doing the same thing. We're going to find two numbers that multiply to negative 18 and add to 3. Okay, so 3 is a positive number, so I'm thinking that we're going to put the negative sign on the smaller number. 3 and 6. All right, so 6 minus 3 is 3. So I'm going to put the negative sign on the 3, and I'm going to break this 3 down into 6 minus 3. Z squared plus 6, and keep that zy, whatever the variable is here, keep that, zy minus 3zy minus 18y squared. Now, we can factor by grouping. We can divide the first two terms by z, and we're left with z plus 6y. Now, we can divide the second two terms by the negative 3. Remember, this is negative 3, so we want to divide by leading coefficient. If it's negative, pull that negative out, and a y. And we have, so negative 3y is our common factor. We have z plus 6y, which makes sense because z plus 6y is going to have to go in both brackets in order to be a common factor. Okay, don't just make it up though. Maybe you did a calculation error if it doesn't line up, but it's definitely a trigger to know that you have to go over your work and review. Okay, so z plus 6y is the common factor, and we're left with z minus 3y. Okay, I'm going to change to a color that I haven't really used. Let's go really bright. Let's go yellow. Okay, I'm going to highlight a couple things. So in example 2a, and I know there's lots on the board, but we found that the common factors that we used were 3 and 4. Take a look at our answer that we got. X plus 3, x plus 4. Okay, let's look for a pattern here. For B, our numbers were 3 and negative 4. Let's look at the answer. X plus 3, x minus 4. Okay, for C, our two numbers were 4 and 4. We got w plus 4, w plus 4. And D, negative 3 and 6. So z plus 6y, z minus 3y. If we think about it, the two factors that we found are actually our factors in the brackets. So now let's use that shortcut. It's called the product sum method. So what we're going to do, and I'll embed this right here into example 3a, we're going to write two sets of empty brackets. So when we have a trinomial a squared plus ab minus 20b squared, we're going to write two brackets, empty. The first term here in both brackets is going to be what would have to multiply together to give you a squared. So that's clearly a times a. Okay? The second term in each bracket is going to be that product sum. So what two numbers multiply to negative 20 and add to 1? Okay, let's go 120, 210, 4, 5. For the difference of 4 and 5, and we're thinking difference because we're thinking negative 20, right? There's going to be a negative number in there. The difference of 4 and 5 is 1, and we need it to be positive, so let's put that negative on the 4. So these numbers right here, we're going to fill in minus 4 plus 5. And this one's a little bit different because we have the b. So the a squared and the a are going to be in the first two terms. The b squared and the b are going to be in the last two terms. So we put it at the end. And that's it. Okay, b. I'm going to write in this middle term since we can't see it. X squared plus 0x minus 16. So write two empty brackets. What two numbers multiply to 16 and add to 0? 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. 4 minus 4 equals 0. So the factors are 4 minus 4, 4 plus 4. I wrote them in the same order. It doesn't matter which order you write them in though. And we're done. Okay, so I'm going to pick this up. We're going to factor these completely. So initially, I want to pull out anything that I can. So I'm going to pull out this 2. We're going to make this a little bit smaller, okay? So 2 is our common factor. We're left with w squared plus 14w plus 12. This is a simple trinomial where the coefficient of w is just 1. So we're going to find two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 14. 1, 12, 2, 6. It's not 14, that's now 7. My mistake. Okay, 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, 4. So 3 and 4 add up to 7. So we're going to put our two brackets. W times W will give us our W squared. And we're going to put a plus 3 and a plus 4 in here. Positive 3, positive 4. That's it. Done. Okay, when looking at this, I want to pull out a 4y. This is common in every term here. Okay, and we're left with y squared plus 9y minus 10. So immediately, I'm looking at factoring this. So what two numbers multiply to 10 and add to 9? Sorry, negative 10. 1, 10, 2, 5. Well, it's going to be 1 and 10. And it has to multiply to negative 10. So one of these has to be negative. Add to 9. I'm going to choose minus 1, negative 1, and 10. Y minus 1, y plus 10. Okay. C. I'm going to divide out a negative 3. Okay, negative 3 is our common factor. We're left with x squared minus 4x minus 12. What two numbers multiply to 12? Negative 12. Add to negative 4. 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, 4. 2 and 6 subtract to negative 4 if the 6 is negative. So we just write our two brackets. X squared will give us an x as our first term, and fill in 2 minus 6. For question D, what we want to do first is we want to put this into standard form. So we'll put the w squared term first, and then the w term, and then the 12, the constant. So we can never factor with this leading coefficient being a negative. So let's go ahead and divide each term by -1, and that's going to be a common factor. So now we're going to deal with the trinomial w squared minus 4w minus 12. Okay, so what two numbers multiply to -12 and then add to -4? Okay, so we see this one a lot, 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, 4. So in order to have a -4, we're going to put the negative sign on the bigger number, okay? So I get 6 and 2, and I put the negative sign on the 6. So our answer is negative, because again, -1 is a common factor, and then w plus 2, w minus 6. Okay, E. We have x cubed minus 7x squared plus 12x. Well, I see that each one of these terms has an x in it. So x is going to be our common factor. Now, x cubed divided by x gives us x squared. Minus 7x squared divided by x gives us negative 7x. And then these x's cancel and we're left with positive 12. So same number, 12 seen a lot. Okay, 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, 4. So which two numbers add or subtract or add to 7? Well, 3 and 4 add to 7. And because it's a -7, we want to add to -7, multiply to 12. 3 and 4 are both going to be negative, so we haven't seen that one yet. So x minus 3, x minus 4. Okay, last one. 5z squared plus 40z plus 60. So we're going to divide each one of these terms by 5, and we're left with z squared plus 8z plus 12. So what two numbers multiply to 12 and add to 8? It's 6 and 2. So our factors are 5. Oh, it's not an x, it's a z. Z plus 6, z plus 2. Okay, last question, example 5. The area of a rectangle is given by this equation. So these are always the easiest because they already give us the equation. Okay? Find the expressions for the length and the width of the rectangle. So just as a review, area equals length times width. So what we're going to do is we're going to factor this equation, and we're going to come up with some bracket, and that's going to be the length. And we're going to come up with a second bracket, and that's going to be an expression for the width, because do you see how they multiply by one another? Right? Length times width. So let's go ahead and write A equals a squared minus 3a minus 10. Okay, what two numbers multiply to -10 and add to -3? Well, 1, 10, 2, 5. So it's going to be a combination of 2 and 5, and we need it to be -3, so 2 minus 5 gives us -3. So we have a plus 2, a minus 5. Okay, so we can say the length, actually I'm going to put it down here because then it will set up part B very nicely. We can say the length is a plus 2, and the width is a minus 5. Okay, so if a equals 15 centimeters, what are the actual length and width? So then all we do is sub in 15. So the length is actually 17 centimeters, and the width is 15 minus 5, and we get 10 centimeters. And I just wrote this conclusion on the board. Therefore, the length is 17 centimeters, the width is 10 centimeters.